Hola, SAP developers. Welcome to today's first session, part of the TOEFL 2025 integration track. Before we start, please know that you can drop your questions on the chat window as we'll be monitoring it and we will answer some questions there, but we also have a special Q&A section at the end of the presentation. Well, today we have Win and Sharan, who are part of the product management team for SAP Build. And they will share with us everything that you need to know about event-driven and API-based automation in SAP Build Process Automation. Without any further delay, hola, Win and Sharan, over to you guys.
Yeah. Hi everyone and welcome to the DevTober's first session today. I'm Vin Acharya and I'm product manager at SAP Build. Today I have Charan with me. Charan, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah. Hello everyone. I'm also part of SAP Build. I'm a product manager. I work with Win, and happy to introduce this topic to you guys today. Yeah, looking forward.
Yeah. Thank you, Charan. So I'll just share my screen and we'll start a presentation. Let me know if you can see.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so today we'll be presenting the topic for intermediate message events and SuccessFactor integration with SAP Build Process Automation. So the agenda is I'll give an overview of API triggers and intermediate message events. There will be a short demo and there will be then an overview of event triggers and a demo. Okay, so the first topic is API triggers and intermediate message events. I believe some of you have already used API triggers, but IME as a concept in SAP Build Process Automation has been released recently. So let me just go through the concepts. So you can now include intermediate message events in your process models, which means that when you have an IME step in your process, you can pause the execution of the process instance till you receive an asynchronous message from an external source. Okay, so it's like I want to wait for an API call from an external source, and when you reach the point in the process, then it will wait. You can also get different properties. For example, in the API call, if you're sending the sales order details or the business partner details, all this information also you can send. And when you receive it at SAP Build Process Automation, you can send it to the downstream activities. For example, you can send it and use them later in the form, actions, decisions, notifications, anywhere you can use them. Point to note, it is supported for the default environment and the shared environment. And customers, stakeholders who are coming from the workflow management background, we also had IMEs there and they had their own APIs, but those APIs will not work for the new IMEs. Please note that they will only work for those existing workflows. And this supports point-to-point communication within an environment. That means you need to have the workflow instance ID whenever it's triggered to be able to connect to the IME. I'll show you that also in the demo. Now, from a design point of view, an intermediate message event is basically a message. You're waiting for a message. In a single process, you can have more than one IME. And whenever you are deploying the process, okay, you will see the details of the API trigger endpoint, how you can call it. For example, you can see the API URL, you can see what payload you are supposed to receive. All this information will be available. I'll show that as well. And in a process, you can have multiple trigger points. For example, the first trigger point from an API point of view could be an API trigger. Later on, you can have different IMEs also in the same process. Okay, the API trigger is what is used to trigger the process. That means the starting of the process. But IME somewhere in between the process if you want to wait for a message. For example, if I say from a SuccessFactor scenario, you have started a new hire process, maybe that's the first API trigger that you can use. And in between the process, if you want to wait for a personal data collection request, then you can wait for that step and another API will come with the details of the personal data collection request and then you can continue it. Of course, point to note here is that we can use APIs, we can use events. Okay, event is a separate topic. Charan will cover that. I am only talking about API based invocation or API driven triggers from the SBPA point of view. Now, when you are talking about a trigger, these are API triggers, and you can have the multiple triggers referring to the same message. Okay, now let's go to the demo. So I'll show the demo in the system here. Here, okay. So this is the build lobby, and in the build lobby, I can go ahead and say I want to create a process. So this is an automated process. I say I want to have a process. I'm giving it a name for today, Devtoberfest 2025 demo. Okay, and review, create. So I will have a process created now. Like I said, we are going to use today API triggers, and event triggers also is what Charan will show. But the other form of triggers that we have also are the form-based triggers and also the schedule triggers. So now I can give a process sales order. Let's say I call it sales order approval process, and this will create a process for me. And we'll create a simple process because our intention is to see how the API triggers work, how IMEs work, and what different scenarios, how different ways we can use to invoke all these as well. So let's say I'm saying add a trigger, so I'm saying API trigger, and I say sales order API trigger, okay, and create. So basically I can say sales order trigger. So in this scenario, let's say I am trying to invoke my process when a sales order has a billing block status. It's a block for billing. Okay, and for an API trigger, if you want to define the inputs, you have to always define it at the process level. So I'm in the process level now. I can go and say variables. I can add the variables, okay, and say sales order. For example, I want to have the sales order number sent to my process, and that should initiate my process as well. So this is the process input that I'm seeing here. Now, typical example, I would like to enhance the process little bit by saying I want to have a get call. I want to understand the details of the sales order. So I need to be able to connect to the SO system and get the sales order details. So I already have the list of sales orders. I mean, these are action projects. So I want to select the particular, yeah, action. Yeah. So read the header of a sales order. This project is already there. The API calls are already tested. It should be working fine for me as well. So now I am saying I want to also, we have to give a destination. I call it as for HANA destination, and during the deployment of the project I need to give the proper destination, because the destination variable again depends on the environment that I want to use. And input here is sales order, okay. Output is I would see the sales order detail. So what I'm doing here, let me again explain the steps. I have an API trigger, I'm sending the sales order, and the next step is an action step. I'm taking the sales order number from the previous step and getting the header details of the sales order. Let's say after this, I would generally like to go for an approval, because a billing block is already created. So I say approval for billing block removal. So I want to send this to a user who has the authority to approve the sales order, okay, for the billing block removal. So I can say here, this is a subject, approve billing block for sales order, and I have to also send the user. So I'm putting my user as of now. Ideally, you should be also be able to use a decision to determine the approver. Okay, so I have an approval form, but I do not have anything else inside the form as of now. So let me also try to add some details here. So let's say, of course, the most important is the sales order. Then I can say probably the sales organization, okay. And I want to also be able to see the net amount and the currency, okay. And apart from that, I would also like to no, this is just, I don't need any extra field. Yeah, I can add sold to party. So this is the sold to party. This is a customer, and I can say I want to ask the user whether you want to approve. Do you want to approve the billing block removal for the sales order, okay. And After that, typically we can have a comments field. Comments. Now these fields are read-only, so I'm marking them as read-only because I'm expecting all these inputs to come from previous step. Okay, only the comment section is what we would want to have this entered by the approver. Now I have designed my form that takes the sales order details. I've saved it as well, and let me go back to the process screen and then try to map the data. Okay, so here I have the process. So now can go here and we can see here currency. Let me put here currency. I have document currency. I can put it net amount. So this is the amount. Okay, I don't need from the item. I need the amount here. Let me check the sales order. Okay, net. This is the net. Okay, net value. This is net value, and sales order here I can also see from here. So I can take it from the action. I can also take it from the process input. Anywhere I can take this. Okay. So this is the sales order. Sales organization is here, and sold to party also will be available here. So I have mapped all the data. This is all set. So that API trigger is there. We have actions, we have the form approval, and now on approval, I would like to just send a simple notification. Okay, I will just say approved mail, and I am sending it again as of now. I'm hard coding it to myself. Please, you're free to use decisions to find the approvers and the recipients for the mails as well. And I can say here approved sales order billing block removal, and also I want to have a head mail here saying sales order billing block approval billing block removal is approved. And for reference, I want to also give the sales order number. Okay, so all good. Yes. So rejection also similarly you can have a mail. I am not adding it here as of now, but this is a simple process that we are having. Okay. Now I can go ahead, release the process. Okay. Now we can go to the project version and I'm deploying it. So this is Win test. I have already an environment that I want to use. So I'm deploying it into that environment. It says here sales order API trigger will be created, which is just fine. And I'm using a destination that works for me for the action, for the get call, for the headers, for the sales order. So I'm using the same destination so that it works also perfectly fine during my execution. Now let's wait for the deployment and then we can see how we can start the process. Okay, so this has been deployed. Let me go back. And there are different ways you can start the process. So let me show the first way. So you go to control tower, then I'm going to the environments, and this is the environment that I have used. Okay. And I can go here to the process and workflows. Okay. Let me check 2025 demo and I can say start new instance. So here already I have a context. I can remove the context and I can also start here. This is the easiest way if you want to just try and test your process. Okay, so sales order 983 and I'm starting. And it has started. I can say show instances. Now it is opening. Here you see we started from control tower, but now we are in monitoring section and we are here in the logs. You can see here the instance has been started with 983 and now we are at the reading the header step. Okay, and this header step has been read and we will see here this is I'm already having a task for the approval. Now, how do I see the task? This is the My Inbox application. I can open the Inbox application and check. So whatever form that I had decided, I had designed, that should be coming up here. Okay, see all these details that I had populated, sold to party, currency, all this amount, this is there. Okay, I probably put the comments before, that is why it has come up instead of below, but that's fine. And let's check the process. So this is completed. Now let's see another way of invoking the same process. Now I go to environments, and I'm again selecting my environment that I was having my project here. Okay, and you see so many tabs. I want to go to the triggers tab. Here it should show my API trigger. Okay. Now I can also filter. So Devtober 2025 demo. Yeah, and also the previous one. Let me check here. So the previous mail also has come, that this has been approved. What I approved right sometime back, that has come up. Now if I look at this is my API trigger that I created just 2 minutes ago, and I can see the information here. And this is the URL, and this is the example schema. So I can copy. Let me just check the URL should be fine. I should be already having the URL. Now let me just copy this. Sorry. This is okay. Yeah. Copy, and I'm going back to my Postman. Okay. Here I want to just use the definition and trigger this. Okay, let's try. Okay, I have to check the authorization. Okay, just a second. Yeah. So here, client credentials. Okay, I need to go back. BTP cockpit. So when I'm setting up, I have to have the client ID secret, and then I have to have the token, correct? So I was using it sometime back. Now it is reset. So I can go back to my system, and I have the keys here created, and I can open the key, and this is the URL that I need. Okay. And I have already given the client ID secret, client credentials. Let me try. Okay, fine. Now I'll just check sales order. This is fine. Forbidden. Let me check my header. Do I have the API key? Okay, let me put the API key as well. This is the API key. Yes. Now, okay, so now it works. So my API trigger, I have been successful at activating it. And let me go back and check here in the monitoring section. Process workflow instance. So I should be able to see my instance up and running. Okay. So this is a Devtober 2025 demo that I have just created. And this is my instance that has started running. And you can see here, these are the details. Let me just check again. It should behave exactly the same way how it worked for my previous scenario as well. Sometimes it takes time if the process, the API is slow, the system is slow. But one interesting thing here is to note that whenever I start with my own user, let me just show you something here. Okay. When I start with my own user, it says acharya@sap.com if I use the monitoring workflow application. But if I'm using a Postman, it is having a different started by. It's not my user that is showing a started by. Let me just check. So this is taking some time to get the API call because exactly it's the same process. Okay. Meanwhile, what we can do is we can go back and make some changes to the project, and we'll come back here and see how this went. Okay. Just let me check one more time. Okay. We'll go back. So let's go to the same project. What I want to do now is I want to add a IME step, intermediate message event step. I want to add to the same project. Let's try to do this. So we have the whole process in place. I want to now, let's say, give an option, also have an option that in case the sales order detail has been updated by the end user, let's say the price has been updated, the quantity, the amount has been updated, then I want to also be able to wait for that, for any update. So what I can do here in between, I can say control and events, and I want to wait for an API call. This is what I mean to say IME. So I can say here wait for sales order update. Okay, and say create. And whenever I am waiting for this, what I want to probably understand is again just a verification. I want to have the sales order and the amount and the currency. Okay, so I want to have this. Okay, and what I'm doing is here amount and currency is there. In this step I can also change the mapping. I can say this amount and I had a currency. I can map it to the previous step. Okay, this is the currency and this is the amount. Yeah, this is the amount. So I've added an intermediate message event step in between. Let me just check once more. Yeah, so the previous one has gone through, and that means it was taking some time to get the header. Now we have the task already. I can show this again, this task. This is the approval billing block for sales order. Same way it works as it does whenever you start from monitoring workflow application or you start from a postman. The approval is almost, I mean, the process how it runs is almost the same. There is no change. So this has been done, and I should also get an approval mail shortly. Now coming back to the project. So what we have done, we've added the IME, and I want to just go ahead and release this. Okay, so show the project version. I want to deploy this, and I say win test upgrade. So I got the notification as well. And now you see I had sales order API trigger as well as I have a new IME. This is also being created, and I can add the destination, deploy. And once it deploys, I'll go back and show you how this changes. I mean, what changes actually. Taking some time to deploy. Done. Now coming back to the control tower, I go back to the environments. I want to again check my environment here. In test, and in this environment, I will again check my project that I was interested in. Let me go to the process and workflows. Okay, we can directly see from the triggers anyways. We already know how to trigger it. Let's go to the triggers and see the trigger view. So I want to filter again from my project, and I should be seeing two triggers here. So the sales order is the API that I had used. So we can still use the same, let me check here. Yeah, we can still use the same instance to start. Yeah, so this is, I just open this. This is the same. Okay, I can just start this, and I use the approval process here. This is sales order. So let me go ahead and do the triggering again. Here you see I have already started, and I can go back and check the monitoring. I should be able to see the process at least up and running. And it should technically wait for me at the IME step because I've introduced a wait step in between. So this is already started, and you see here, luckily, thanks, this time the service worked faster, and we are waiting for the IME step. Okay. Now what do I need to do? I need to now trigger the IME step from an external source, right? So just I say view, and I have this already. I need to copy this. I go back. I have the IME here step here. I can add this. Okay, and then I go back and I take the execution payload as well, copy and delete this, paste it, and I had to give the sales order. So this is somebody is already triggering it, 983. Let's say my amount is 10,000 euros, and I need to also pass the execution ID, right? So execution ID I will get from this instance ID. What I've copied here, this is my execution ID. I will send it here, and I just check the authorization. I have the authorization, proceed, use token. I have the headers. Yes. Now I should be able to at least trigger this. Okay, 204, no content. So let me go back. So I was waiting for the IME step. Let me just refresh. It should be proceeding now. Okay, so it waited and it is now at the my inbox step. So let's see here. Okay, so the amount has been reflected here. Basically, if you want to wait for the sales order update for other details also you can do. This is just a example how you can work with. So this is approved, and now if I go back, I should be able to see the process complete. Okay. So these are three things that I showed now. There are some additional things also that you can do. For example, we saw how we could use a API trigger for a process and in the IME in the intermediate step. What you can also do is, if you go to the control tower and environments, if you have a decision project only, let me show that, sorry. So if you have a decision project only, then also you can use an API trigger to uh, start this. I got the approval mail also for the previous process. So I'm just showing you quickly, and I'll hand it over to Charan in a few minutes. So here we have a decision project. We do have use cases also where customers and stakeholders want to have projects only containing decisions, and then they want to invoke it separately. So I have a project that has only some decision, and in the decision I can show you in details how this looks like. So we have input parameters, output parameters. This is a sales organization, and based on the sales organization I want to determine the approver. Now these are the rules what I have defined. So if I open the rules, I can see that I have defined that if the sales organization is 1710, then it's me who is the approver. For all other sales organization, Charan can take the headache of approving it. So now if I go back, and what I want to do is, I have not defined any trigger here inside this, right? So I can go to the control tower, I can go to environments. So what we have seen so far is a design time trigger. That means only during the designing the process you can define the triggers. Now I will show you also the concept of runtime triggers. That means after your process or project has been created, you can still define triggers. So I'll show you how this is done. So this is only possible for API triggers for decision projects and for automations. And it's possible for schedule triggers as well. So if I say add trigger, I can choose the decision project, for example, and I can see here this option is enabled for me to have an API trigger. It says clearly, only if I have an automation or a decision, I can use the API trigger from a runtime point of view. That means I can create it from this screen. And from the drop down, you see, I can select the decision. Now say I want to create. So I have the information, I have the URL, and I have the payload. Similarly, you can use this payload and also start from the postman. Okay. So this is one way you can create for decisions. Similarly, I have also another project that has a automation that has only one automation. You can have multiple automations. You can use also triggers to trigger each of these automations. So this is having one automation. Very, very simple use case. Just I wanted to show you that you can trigger also the automations this way. So this is a very simple automation. It just gets the sales order details and it logs it. Now if I go here in the same screen, I came back, is it? So I go again. I hope you all will remember how to find at least your triggers and processes in environments by the end of the session. I've already shown this so many times. So here we go to the win test, and now I go to the triggers again, and yeah, just wait for the screen to load up. Okay, yeah, add trigger. You can also say, what was it called, sales order something, approval, release, deployed, API triggers. Next, so you saw schedule trigger also was available. Yeah, I think, yeah, this is the sales order automation, you can see here. And then say go ahead. Okay, so when you create, you'll also get the post, and it says here specifically you have to give IRP API key. This is the name. You cannot only give API key generally how you give, you have to give IRP as well. And this is the payload that you need to use in your postman. So this you can copy and this you can use it. Okay, so that's it from my side. Let me just check if I missed anything. No. So that's it from my side. Thank you so much. And Charan, over to you for more interesting insights on SuccessFactor integration for events. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Vin. That was really interesting to see multiple ways that you can trigger an event and action. I think we learned a lot in this process. Now, what I want to add to the learning process is we want to also understand how you can use cloud application event hubs to use events from not only Event Mesh but also use events from Event Hub. And we will take SuccessFactor as a system today. Let's talk a little bit about what event-driven architecture is. So an event plays an important role in most of the landscapes. We have an event source where the system is then triggering an event for a change, for an update, for a read, or any of that sort. And then there's an event broker, which is then communicating the event, which is then emitted by the source, and the consumer is then consuming the event, which is just sent through the event broker. In our case, the event broker was Event Mesh in the past, and now we're going to use Cloud Hub. And I mean, the goal of the presentation is also to understand that the Event Mesh is not the only way. We can also consume events using Event Hub. Event comes from different flavors. It comes as a notification event, data event. Notification event can be very precise, can give you information only only about an update. But when it comes to data event, it can carry more than what you need. It could be similar to an API response. Now, a little bit more about the key advantages in an event-driven architecture. Broadcasting is done. A broadcasting of messages are done. Application can tune into the messages that you're interested to. Then there's a decoupling, which means the publishing application does not need to know who's receiving the messages. So the application who emits this event doesn't have to know about who's receiving the event. Then at the end, the person who wants to receive it can then subscribe to it. And there's also filtering because you can receive events, but you only want to listen to. And then it also has three key pillars. That's it's dynamic in routing, it's decoupled and connected, and the publishing. So the publishing happens through publishing applications, and there is a risk that the event is used by multiple users, and the change in the model can help in the reduced risk is the change in one model will require the change in another model. So there's decoupling connectivity and dynamic routing. So the correct messages are received. If a publisher is sending a message and the subscriber is enrolled to a message, the right messages are received from the consumer side. A little bit more about what happens in the build. So from the build lobby, I will just jump to the lobby now for a bit. Please let me know if you see my screen. So this is the lobby, and you know that events are something that is under the connector section. So you have a specific section where you can discover events. And today you can discover events in three different ways. So you can discover events in the API Hub or the Business Accelerator Hub, where you have the list of events, which is more like a reference system. Each system would then give you access to multiple, I think my system is slow, let's just refresh. So this is more like the reference system. So you can see all the events that are emitted from the API hub. Looks like it's not working. So let's go back, it's fine. And the other one was the UCL, which is more like if you have a system connected on the BTP and the formation of the UCL is triggered, then you also see events which are specific to the system, more like a live events which are available for a system. And in the end, if you have a custom event defined in a CLAP application, RAP application, or in any third-party applications, you can also consume them using the upload specification. And you can just upload the specification of an event, and then the event mesh should be able to handle the event, and you should be able to receive the event as a trigger, which Win showed us in a few minutes back. You can use it in multiple places and an intermediate message. You can use it in the trigger, so you can use it in multiple places. So event plays a key role when you have defining a process, when you want to trigger a process, also when making decisions in between a process. A little bit more about events. So this is one of the events from SuccessFactors. This is the system we're looking at today, and you can see this is something that I added to the UCL. My system's not working, so I'm just showing you how this event will look like. You can see the output, you can see the headers of the event, and you can also see the subscription channel that you need to do, that you need to enroll to. And you can see all the events that this particular onboarding process step gives you access to. And each of it has like a different subscription that you need to follow. What does it mean? That the publishing application can have multiple events. The consumer might be interested only in the document flow completed. So you can enroll to the exact one you're looking for, and then you can start your process based on that. So how does a simple process look like? You define you go to the lobby, which we just where you create an event project, and then in the event project you also release and publish. Once you do that, the events are available in the SPPA, which means if you're in a process builder, then you can already access the event, which we already saw in Win's demo. So she was able to access the event, and she could also add it in the intermediate step, in the trigger, and using that in between, then you can deploy the project and manage the trigger, which we also saw. And then in the ERP system, this is what I will show in a few minutes. The ERP system is when the system is triggering the actual event and the SPPA can start the process. So this is how a simple journey of a user would look like when you're using an event. A few key challenges that we're looking at is that event discovery in HR scenarios are onboarding and compensation are limited. So there are limited resources when it comes to SuccessFactor events, and it's hard to identify the relevant business events across connected systems. And custom integrations require additional effort. And I think you all know how it is difficult to connect a system on BTP, and it also takes a little bit longer for the learning curve is a little higher to do the event mesh onboarding, to do the system onboarding, and then to make sure that the connection is integrated properly. It does take a little longer. I don't see the other part. Yeah. With this innovation, what we're trying to do is we discover events from SuccessFactors using Event Hub. So the goal was that we also use Event Hub as an additional mean to discover event, not only event mesh. And this could be our event broker. And then we have an event-driven automation, which we just saw using Build Lobby, and they can create responsive flows where we can have intermediate messages. An overview of application Event Hub, it's flexible. It can be used for business events across SAP landscape. It allows customers to control event flow with a simple setup, which we will see in a few minutes. And also it's a default solution for SAP Cloud Application Event Hub, focusing on low cost and for both SAP and for customers. Now let's go to the demo. Just to respect the time, I have a recording because I've covered a lot of steps over here from the global account to sub account to sub account to global account, and then moving into the demo itself. So I will just walk you through the demo over here. So we're at the sub account now, a sub account where we have access to all the subscriptions that we have enrolled to. And you can see over here that we have a subscription about Build Apps, Build Process Automation, Integration Suite, and also Event Mesh is already part of this. And now what we want to do additionally is we want to add the Event Hub. And what we do is go back to the global account where we look for entitlements. In the entitlement section, you would be able to find the Event Hub. So if you don't find it in the list already, you have to look for it. So over here, Again, I'm trying to look for the event hub, and then I look for the services, and then I look for the event hub. And Cloud Application Event Hub, that's what we see over here. It's a standard plan, and then we save it. And then I go back to the sub account where I can go to the service marketplace. It's in the same sub account where we have the SAP Build Process Automation, and you already see the Cloud Event Hub this time. And I will stop over here a little bit. So you use the standard plan, and we have to create the service. And once we do so, then we would be able to, once we will do so, then we would be able to add it as an instance. So we go ahead and create. And it's a standard plan like I just explained. And then we go to the view subscription, then which means that in the subscription list, which we were missing the Cloud Application Event Hub. Now it's in processing state, and after a few minutes, it will be processed and it would be available for consumption. And these are the steps that you need to do to make sure that the Event Hub is available in your BTP account. 2 or 3 key important things that you needed to do. If you don't find the entitlement, you go to your global account, you try to find the entitlement. At the entitlement, you come back to the sub account and then try to make sure that you add the service and the service is visible under your instances and subscriptions. And here we're trying to add a system. So we're trying to add the SuccessFactors system over here. So we're trying to look for a view where we see where we can add systems. And all these steps are role bound, so I don't think everybody will be able to add a system, add an entitlement, add a subscription. So these are all depending on what roles you have on BTP. And usually this is an admin role who's taking care of all the adding of a system and the subscriptions, etc. So over here, we notice that we have already a system which is available, and that is a SuccessFactors system. And it also has 90 APIs and 11 events that are available in this system. And we have a look at we've added the system. Now we go ahead and create a formation. We create a formation. In this step, we're trying to connect. So we give it a name, SuccessFactors, and the formation type, Event Hub. And we go ahead and click on the formation type. Here we will use the integration. We use the eventing between cloud systems. Sorry about that. And then we click on the next step, and then we choose the Build Process Automation subscription and the SuccessFactors subscription. And it's auto-discovered, which means then the events and the APIs we just looked at, both are available. And this is the event broker that we're also enabling. And this is the sub account, that information that Vin was explaining. So we also have this build process automation subscription. So we're trying to create a formation where it has the communication between the build and the system. And we go ahead. We click on the next step. After we do that, and now you see that we have 3 things. I just want to go back a little bit. So if you see, we have the event broker, we have the system, that is a SuccessFactors system, and the build process automation. We're trying to create a formation with this, and we go ahead, we click on create. And with this formation created, now we go back to, we have a look at the systems. This will, with respect to time, I just will move a little bit forward. And now with the system landscape, we already have a formation. We added a system, we added a formation. And now we go a little bit forward. And now we want to have an integration dependency, which means that we need to have dependency on the integration. And then here we're trying to use a simplified business eventing template and not the built blank template, because then we'll have some information and a template already that you can use. We try to give it a name and some description and the publishing system namescape. So in this, it is the SuccessFactors system, which we just created or added, and the event type. So we define a little bit about the event type, what we want to do. So over here, you see the personal data collection. This is what we want to complete. What does it mean? So if somebody's completing the personal data, and at the end of the data collection, you would be able to receive an event. That's the point of this event. move ahead, you add this, and then you go back to the instances. And now we step into the Cloud Hub or the Event Hub in this case. And then we step into the Event Hub. And there you can see the available subscription. So you can see a subscription that is connected to the SuccessFactor and the SPPA onboarding events. And over here, we're trying to activate the event subscription. And we made sure that the SuccessFactors is already enabled. And now we go back to the formations. We create formation again. And we create now SPPA, formation for SPPA, integration. So this is what I misunderstood. The first part I was already trying to do the formation for the system, and the next part is what we're trying to do the formation for SAP Build. And here we're again trying to connect to the trigger, which is the event trigger. And we do the same steps we did in a few minutes back. And now finally we are at the place where we can use the event. So in the event discovery, like I showed, you were already able to discover events, and there you go. The UCL is a system which we have. For this particular BTP account, we already have set up the UCL properly, and the BTP also has destinations created and systems connected. And that's the reason we were able to see systems when you click on UCL. And when you type in the respective SuccessFactor onboarding events, you can already see the events. And in the next step, I will discover the event a little bit, and you will also see information of what exactly the event would provide. And now you're choosing the onboarding processing step. And you see the subscription here. You can see the subscription, what we've just saw. And we also see the input and the output, the output headers. And then we now create a project. That's the right event project we are going to use. Once it's created, it's automatically published. Yeah, there you go. The event is released then and published. And after we do this, see the events are available within the library, which means if you go into a process, then you can already consume the event. So I go back to the lobby, select a project, and I create an automated process. In this case, in this example, we're trying to create a process where we will have some decisions and also approvals, just like when used. And here we're trying to create a SuccessFactor approval process. And we will go ahead, and in the beginning, we will say we start with an event. I think here I will stop. So I think in the past, a few minutes back, Vin showed that you can have an API trigger, and now we're showing how to do an event trigger. So you can select an event as a trigger, and with this, you can already add the event which you will receive. In our case, it's the personal data collection, and you will create the event. You create the step, and then you add a few additional steps. You can already see the output parameters. Moving ahead, you will want to create a form in our case. So we go down and create a form, approval form, and for an approval form, you need an approver, and you also have to create some steps. So this is what we're trying to do in this particular step. So you create a personal approval, personal collection step. And in this, you have two steps. Then you have a decision, approve or reject. And in this, you want to create form. We have an header, we have a text. We try to give some mapping with the data we receive. And both are read-only, so you can only read. So user information, user ID, and we try to provide the personal data information, which is going to be updated. So we've created the process now, and then we move ahead and map it from the event, just like we did in the API trigger. We're mapping the event output to the process and the user ID exactly, and then we save it. We release it. We also need to add an approver ID, I think. Yes. And then we save. So now we have set up our process. We release it. We still have to select the users and the groups. In this case, Win is already choosing Win. I think this is a demo. So we've already chosen Win's email address as an approver. And then we save. Everything goes through, we're checking, we want to release, and then once we release, the life cycle is the same for what we saw in the process. It doesn't change. So you release, then you actually publish it, and then you can deploy already. So you choose an environment. In this case, we've chosen a public environment, which is also pre-created. And you also saw the step where you can see that it's an event-based trigger. So you can see that the trigger is affected with an event. The process is affected with an event trigger. And now we go to the system, wait for it to deploy. And on the top, we can deploying is active. Now we go to a system where we want to update the information. We update the information and we click on submit. This is the personal data collection which we just created, the event. Once we do that, we should be able to trigger an event. So we can see that it's completed. Personal data is completed. So with this, then it should also trigger an event. We go to the monitoring to check if the event is triggered and the process is started. In this case, you can see it's running already, and it was started with a trigger from the system. And you also receive an approval that yeah, there you go. You receive an approval from the form we created with the user ID and the personal ID. And then you can approve and reject depending on what you want to do. And once you do that, then the process is completed. You can check on the completed log, and you can see that the flow was triggered using an event, and then also completed with the additional steps that we have added in the process. So key takeaways from this presentation was that that we can already had also events from Event Hub, not only from Event Mesh. The process is a little more leaner compared to the Event Mesh. You can set up the Event Hub a little more quicker, and then you can also consume events from SuccessFactors. And I think from the key takeaway from the whole presentation was you learned about API triggers, event triggers, intermediate messages that you can add in the process, and all of this can be combined to make a more powerful decision and a workflow. So this was the key takeaways from the presentation. We are done for now, and we will have some questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Wayne and Sharon, for the presentation, right, and sharing your expertise as part of this session. Like, I really like the concept of intermediate message events. Like, I've never thought about it that way, so I learned a lot there for sure. Obviously, I was familiar with stuff like API triggers and event triggers, but that concept of the intermediate message events is not something that I had a grasp of. So that's quite interesting. Thank you for sharing that. We had a couple of questions in the chat that I was actually able to answer. So one of them was when you started talking about SAP Cloud Application Event Hub, if, for example, if it supports SAP Sales and Service Cloud V2. So the answer to that is it doesn't support it at the moment. I know that it's in the works, basically. So within the chat, you can also find a link to see all those different cloud applications that are supported, right? So for example, Sharon showed us here how SuccessFactors easily integrates with Cloud Application Event Hub and that to SAP Build Process Automation. Yeah, so that's something. And do know that, for example, like once a system is enabled, Like you can easily share events with other SAP cloud applications, right? So SAP Build Process Automation being one of them. But in the end, you can also have something like cloud integration in the mix if you need to further integrate that with another third-party service, or even with another broker. Like there's an integration with SAP Integration Suite Advanced Event Mesh. So do know that. There was also another question about the reference architecture for event-driven applications. It is promoting a component that's called Events to Business Actions Framework. And the question is basically, is it a component that you would recommend for BPA? And yeah, also in that case, I also provided an answer there just because it's like it's part of the reference architectures, and in the end, it's a component that's described there. But the component actually talks about monitoring and how to a modeler app, for example, and even a runtime. And in a way, it's like I say, SAP Build Process Automation already includes all that. But in the diagram, it actually includes it as SAP Build Process Automation connecting to that, exchanging data, for example, with this events to actions framework. But yeah, it's all explained in the reference architecture. So if you're interested in learning more about events, obviously, yeah, do check that out because it's quite thorough, I would say. So that's good. Now, there's one question that was just added now, which is it says, how do you provide a workflow instance ID to trigger awaiting tasks for an event?
Yeah. So I showed this in the demo. So when we talk about IMEs, one important thing to note is that you can only get this workflow instance ID once the instance has started. So only when the instance is started, you can go to the monitoring workflow application, copy the instance ID, it's there in the UI, and then take it and use it. So before the starting the process, you cannot do it. And another part is before the IME step is reached, if you try to invoke it, it will not work. That is what I was trying today morning as well. I forgot that the IME step has not reached and it was not working. Then I realized, okay, I have to wait till the IME step and then it will start because we don't have a way of queuing it. That means it will not keep it in queue till your IME step reaches, then you go ahead. No, after it has reached, only after that you can invoke this. So this is there already in the workflow definition, when workflow instance when it gets started. So you can get it there.
Will there be, I'm just thinking, would it be possible to include within your process a step that informs a third-party system, for example, about that workflow instance ID?
The process, so for example, if you have one process, you can have 100 instances of the same process.
Mm-hmm.
So every instance ID could be different. So if
Mm-hmm.
you want to invoke only one particular instance, we need that specific ID. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a broadcasting button that is supported. It was planned to be supported later. This was the
Okay.
first scope that we supported. Ideally, we should be able to support that broadcasting pattern as well. That will come up probably in the future roadmap.
Yeah.
So,
Well, if I can say something about the SAP Build Process Automation team is that they keep innovating, and they keep like obviously, as you said, this is the first scope, so this is the first iteration of this, and they iterate very fast. So I would say, yeah, do expect something like that coming sooner rather than later, which is great, so yeah, that's something very good. Um, yeah, those are all the questions that we have. Anything else that you guys would like to add?
yes, if you have any issues, concerns, stoppers, blockers, please do feel free to reach out to us and we'll be happy to help you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. And I just want to add one more thing. Like, if you by any chance are attending TechEd, there will obviously be hands-on workshops, sessions, and presentations regarding this sort of topics. You'll be able to obviously bump into different product managers, part of SAP Build, also in TechEd Berlin, or in TechEd Bangalore, or in TechEd Australia. So do keep an eye because some of these sessions are actually being done in the different techs that will be going on around the world. So yeah, keep an eye on that. And even eventually, like there will be some content in the SAP Samples GitHub repo, GitHub organization, sorry, where you will find repos with hands-on workshops. Like even if you're not able to make it to an in-person event. Do check out that out eventually because there will be some important content there that will give you at least, you might not be able to complete the exercises, but it will give you an idea, as a developer on what is possible to achieve. And I guess that's also something for you to, not just more material for you to learn, so keep an eye on that. Yes. Yeah, well, that's it. I think we can wrap. So thanks again to Win and Sharon for the session. And I also want to thank the viewers for joining the live event, or maybe the recording of this if you're watching it a bit later. There is plenty for everyone to learn during the TourFest, so make sure to check out other sessions that are part of the event. Okay? And with that, that's it. We wrap it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice day. Bye.
Ciao.